A wolf is wild. So in order to try and understand how they think, you gotta kind of shift your mentality. A dog is domestic, and they have had years and generations of selective and controlled breeding by people to make them how they are today. A wolf does not think like a dog.
Hi, welcome to the Echo's episode on wolves. I'm Mike Davis, and today we're here at the Wolf Sanctuary. They focus on the education and the caretaking of wolf-dog hybrids. We were given a tour around the sanctuary today. The sanctuary has multiple different enclosures in which there are different amounts and different types of wolf-dog hybrids. The amount and type of the wolf dogs in these enclosures is entirely based on their social tendencies and how they relate to each other.
Matthew Juno here. On the tour around the sanctuary, we were able to get an accurate picture of how these animals interact with each other, as well as how they interact with their caretakers, one of which is Michelle Proulx. Here she describes their behavior.
A lot of people are always wondering, the dogs, are the wolf dogs more social than the wolves? Are the wolves more dominant than the dogs? And it really depends a lot on how they're raised and how they're socialized with people as to how comfortable they're going to be with people.
To gain some insight on this unpredictability, we sat down with Michelle and discussed all things wolf dog.
So can you kind of take us through at the Wolf Sanctuary what proper care for wolf dogs looks like?
At our facility, we provide outdoor habitats where the animals are allowed to basically live their lives as free as we can make it in captivity. Obviously, when you have any animal in captivity, they're not truly free. But we provide habitats that are anywhere from a quarter acre all the way through an acre in size. We keep our animal groups small, 2 to 3 individuals typically, because the more animals you put together in a group, the more chances you get for conflict when you have a captive situation. In the wild, they're able to, if they get into a conflict with the rest of the pack or a member of the pack, they can run away, cool off, or they can leave the pack. In captivity, they've got a fence that prevents them from doing so. So keeping the group small helps to kind of keep the environment calm and easier to manage. Wolves are very, very intelligent, and they're great problem solvers. They know how to figure their way out or into a situation, and they're very intelligent in that way. And when you have an intelligent social animal, they're going to have a very complex social structure and group structure. And a lot of people have this idea and this image of an alpha wolf and an omega wolf and this competition for this dominance, and I'm going to be the boss. And I think that kind of leads to this idea that wolves are a very violent animal. So that competition factor, I believe, gets a lot more intense when you've got a bunch of unrelated animals trapped together in a small area. So that's where you get this competition for this alpha position. But the social dynamic in a wild pack is a lot more egalitarian than you would see in a dog group or even a captive wolf pack.
But what are I guess some of the most notable differences?
A wolf does not think like a dog.
Right.
And a lot of people make that mistake. They say, oh, it looks like a dog, it must behave like a dog, it must be a dog. Dogs are wolves, right? Not exactly. Wolves in general are extremely independent individuals. They're very individualistic and they think for themselves. Now, they like to be as part of a social group, they like to have structure and companionship, but they are still thinking for themselves and independently what is best for me and my own survival. So this oftentimes lends them to be very curious. Oftentimes their independent, curious behavior leads them to be very destructive when they're in a contained or captive setting, especially when you're talking about an urban setting. They have a much higher predatory drive, fairly territorial individuals, and it just becomes extremely challenging for people to deal with in a captive situation. So those are some behaviors that we can look at when trying to identify if we think this animal is more dog and more wolf. Obviously, you've got to take it with a grain of salt because every individual is unique.
So with a given individual, I guess, and I'm sure it changes all the time, but is there 50% genetic, that's true wolf?
We don't know for sure if any of our wolves are pure or what percentage they are.
Right.
All of ours are based on a combination of behavioral and physical characteristics, so it is an educated guess on our part. We do have a number of animals that we believe are extremely high content wolf, mostly wolf, but most of the time our animals fall into the mid to high content category with a few low contents. But beyond those categories, we don't do any kind of percentage classification for the animals. We simply don't have the ability to figure that out at this point.
Are there any misconceptions with like wolves or wolf dogs that just aren't true that you want to clear up?
Well, yeah, there's hundreds, obviously. Probably the biggest one is this idea that wolves is the big bad wolf. We see this a lot in mythology. We see this a lot in movies. They've been extremely villainized. And in reality, wolves are not that evil, if you will. They are a predator. They do have to hunt and kill to survive. And yes, that can be brutal. But if you look at any predator, it's going to be the same thing. In my understanding, you are probably more likely to be bitten by a dog, and even a dog you're familiar with, than you are a wolf. Because a wolf still has a self-preservation instinct that's very, very strong. They're going to look at a situation, and if they deem that situation is potentially harmful or hazardous to them, that they can't win with a good amount of certainty, they're going to choose to run away. They're going to run away from that situation. They're going to remove themselves because that's safe. Run away and live another day. So that's kind of one of the things that I've seen with wolves and dogs, is wolves tend to be very timid, very aloof, kind of standoffish. They're not going to just throw themselves into a situation because they're thinking about their own personal safety, whereas a dog is much more forward, much more outgoing, and much more willing to take an aggressive response to a dangerous or threatening situation.
In terms of wolf conservation and reintroduction, what's your perspective on that? I know it's a very divisive issue because a lot of people feel very passionately for or against it, depending on their situation, like whether they have livestock or where they live or how it's going to affect them.
I think wolf conservation needs to occur. I believe that they are a vital species in the environment. They are critical for helping to maintain a healthy ecosystem. And I think there have been steps that have been taken, moving in a forward, positive direction for wolf conservation. There's a lot of organizations out there, sanctuaries like us, conservation organizations, who are really helping to expand the knowledge of wolves and to create a more realistic picture. And I feel that's the biggest thing we need to try and accomplish here, to make awareness increase of the animal as it is in the wild.
Where's the sanctuary going to go from here, in your view?
I would love to see the sanctuary be able to help save more of these animals' lives by physically being able to take care of more animals, but also by able to increase our educational outreach, to reach more people, to let them know that this is an issue. There's hundreds of thousands of these animals currently being kept as pets in the United States. And if we can educate people, if we can help to create an accurate picture of what the wild animal is and the compromises it has to make in order to live in captivity, I really hope that we can decrease the demand for exotic animals as pets. And if we decrease the demand, we're going to decrease the amount of animals that need to be saved. And that is ultimately, I think, our goal.